The stars looked calm from the bridge of the Aurora's path, but Captain Alara Vance knew better. Calm skies often hid storms. For 3 weeks, she and her crew had chased faint signals from the outer colonies. The settlements on Ganymede, Asterion, and Windmere had all gone silent. No distress calls, no trade request, just silence, as if whole worlds had taken a single breath and forgotten to let it out. Alara stood near the forward display, her dark eyes fixed on the map of the solar routes. Tiny points of light marked every colony that had once been alive with messages. Now most were gray. Still nothing? She asked. Lieutenant Hale, the ship's comm officer, shook his head. Static, Captain. Same as before. I've tried all bands. Alara's jaw tightened. Hale had been a reliable officer for years. If he could not find a signal, there probably was none. At the science station, Dr. Sarah Malik scrolled through streams of sensor data. Her brow furrowed as she tapped a control. Energy patterns are strange, she said softly. Not natural, but not like any weapon I know. Ilara walked to her side. The display showed faint curves like ripples in water. Where's the source? They seem to come from beneath each colony's surface, Sarah replied. Not from space, Ilara crossed her arms. So not an attack from outside? Maybe not, Sarah said. Or maybe something planted long ago. Ilara felt the weight of the mission press harder. The Aurora's path was not a warship. It was an explorer, built for survey work and light rescue. She had a crew of 24, enough to help a settlement, not enough to fight unknown forces. She turned back to the stars. Set course for Windmere, she ordered. Full burn. Windmere lay at the edge of human space, a small planet with soft green plains and a thin atmosphere. When the colony had been founded 50 years earlier, settlers called it the Gentle World. Its forests were famous for trees with silver bark, and its winds carried a sweet scent. But when the Aurora's path slipped into orbit, no lights shone from the towns below. Ilara studied the empty surface through the viewport. No comm traffic, Hale confirmed. Even beacon towers are dark. Landing team, prepare, Ilara said. She chose Sarah, Hale, and 2 security specialists to go with her. The rest of the crew would keep watch from orbit. Their shuttle descended through pale clouds. As the landing struts touched the soft grass near the main settlement, a thin layer of dust rose. Sparkling in the light of Windmere's sun, the town was silent. Ilara stepped out first, scanning the quiet streets. Buildings stood intact. Homes with rounded roofs, greenhouses with glass walls, a market square with benches. But there were no people. Even the air felt still. Power grid is down, Hale said, checking his wristpad. No life signs close by. Let's split up, Ilara decided. Hale, check the comm tower. Sarah, look for signs of disease or environmental hazard. Security, stay close. She herself walked toward the central archive building, its doors half open as if someone had left in a hurry. Inside, shelves of data chips lined the walls. A terminal blinked with a faint light, the only thing still alive in the town. Ilara touched the screen. A message appeared. The origin will reclaim its own. She read it twice. The words were simple, but the meaning was not. Who was the origin, and what did reclaim mean? She saved the message to her pad and returned outside. Hale met her halfway, shaking his head. Comm tower is fine. Systems wiped clean. No logs. Sarah arrived holding a small scanner. No toxins, no radiation, no trace of illness. The environment is safe. Ilara looked over the quiet square. A breeze stirred a banner above a store. Someone had left a cup on a table, as though they meant to return. Everything suggested a sudden, silent departure. Maybe they were taken, Hale suggested. By what? Sarah asked. Or who? Ilara added. They searched the colony for hours. Homes were neat, food left half prepared, tools resting on benches. In one greenhouse, rows of vegetables grew untouched, their leaves heavy with dew. Everything was in place except the people. As the sun began to sink behind the hills, Ilara stood at the edge of the settlement. Beyond, the plains stretched to a silver forest. The scene was peaceful, but she felt a quiet tension underneath, like the world was holding a secret. Back aboard the shuttle, the crew spoke little. Only when they were rising into orbit did Sarah break the silence. Captain, she said, I found something in the soil near the power station. She handed over a clear vial filled with dark sand. Tiny fragments inside caught the light. It's artificial, Sarah explained. Nanostructures. Buried deep, Ilara studied the sample. What do they do? I don't know yet, Sarah said. But they're old, maybe older than the colony. Get them to the lab, Alara said. That night, Alara gathered her officers in the briefing room. The ship hummed softly, a steady comfort against the mystery. On the wall display, Hale showed a map of the colonies. Red dots marked those that had gone silent. The pattern formed a wide arc across space. They're not random, Hale said. If this continues, the next would be Callisto Prime. Sarah brought up a close image of the soil fragments. These are like dormant circuits, she said. I think they were planted during the early settlement years. They've been sleeping until recently. Alara tapped her fingers on the table. Something woke them. Maybe a signal, Hale said. Or a timer. Alara's gaze swept the room. And the message? The origin will reclaim its own. Could be Earth, Sarah suggested quietly. Earth was the origin of every colony. The room fell still. Alara thought of the cradle of humanity, shining blue and white far behind them. Earth had sponsored most of the first-wave settlements. It also held the authority to regulate expansion, though in recent decades colonies had grown more independent. Why would Earth do this? Hale asked. They built these worlds. Maybe they think they're losing them, Sarah replied. Alara felt unease twist in her stomach. If Earth was behind the silence, it meant a plan so vast and secret that even deep space captains like her had never heard of it. She rose from her chair. We can't guess. We need proof. The next day, the Aurora's path left Windmere and set course for Callisto Prime. As the ship cut through space, Sarah worked in the lab, studying the nanostructures from Windmere's soil. Through the viewport, distant stars stretched into lines. Alara walked the corridor, thinking of the settlers who had trusted her to bring them help. She thought of the message waiting on her pad. She could almost hear the words in the ship's quiet hum. The origin will reclaim its own. At the observation deck, she paused. Space was vast, but she felt the colony's absence like missing voices in a song. For a century, humanity had spread across the void, building farms, cities, and stations. They had turned barren moons into gardens and watched children grow under alien skies. Now those voices were gone, and the gardens were empty. Alara tightened her fists. Not if I can help it, she whispered. As the ship approached Callisto Prime, new readings filled the screens. Hale frowned at the data. Gravitational pulses, he said. Same signature as Windmere. Sarah adjusted her instruments. It's getting stronger. Alara leaned over the display. The pulses came from deep under Callisto's crust, steady and rhythmic like a heartbeat. Whatever was happening, it was spreading. Prepare a probe, she ordered. I want to see what's down there before we land. The probe launched, diving toward the icy moon. Its sensors sent back images of buried structures, smooth, metallic shapes nested like seeds beneath layers of rock. Those aren't natural, Sarah said. And they're active. Alara stared at the images. The shapes looked like beacons or perhaps locks waiting to be opened. Suddenly, the signal from the probe flickered, then cut off. Lost contact, Hale reported. Something shut it down. Alara straightened. All hands alert status. Night fell over Callisto Prime's horizon as the Aurora's path maintained orbit. Lights from the ship cast soft beams against the moon's pale surface. In the captain's cabin, Alara reviewed every report. The pieces formed a troubling picture. Silent colonies, hidden machines, a message claiming ownership. She thought of the settlers' faces from her last visit to Windmere, farmers laughing in a market, children chasing each other between silver trees. Where were they now? Safe somewhere, or gone without a trace? She closed her eyes for a moment, steadying her breath. She could not give in to fear, not while people depended on her. When she opened her eyes, her resolve felt sharper. She would find the truth, whether it lay in the cold ground of a distant world, or in the polished halls of Earth itself. Humanity's story among the stars was too important to be erased, and Alara Vance was not ready to let shadows claim it. The journey back to Earth was long, but Captain Alara Vance felt as if time moved faster than the stars outside her ship. Every hour brought her closer to answers, or to dangers she could not yet name. The Aurora's path sailed through the quiet lanes of space, its silver hull gleaming in the glow of distant suns. Inside, the crew worked with quiet focus, each person aware that the mystery around the vanished colonies was deeper than anyone had thought. Alara stood in the command room, watching Blue Earth grow larger on the screen. Its white clouds and green lands shone like a jewel. Home. Yet for the first time, she did not see comfort. She saw questions. Ida, 9 hours. Hale reported from the pilot's seat. Alara nodded, maintained steady course. No announcements to traffic control yet. Hale raised an eyebrow. Keeping it quiet? We don't know who we can trust, she said. Until we understand what's happening, this stays between us. Across the room, Sarah Mullick studied a datapad, her face lit by pale blue light. She looked tired but determined. For days she had examined the strange fragments found in Windmere's soil. Now new theories filled her notes. Alara moved closer. Any progress? Sarah looked up. I think the structures are receivers. They're tuned to a very low signal, almost like a heartbeat from far away. Earth? Alara asked. Most likely, Sarah replied. I traced the frequency pattern. It matches old communication channels used during the first wave of colonization. Alara frowned. So someone on Earth planted devices in the colonies a long time ago. Sarah hesitated. Or maybe they were ordered to, and no one alive remembers why. When the Aurora's path entered Earth orbit, sunlight spilled across the oceans below. Huge arcologies glittered along the coasts while green belts stretched across continents. It looked peaceful, but Alara could not forget the message. The origin will reclaim its own. She requested landing clearance under a research code, hiding their true purpose. Soon the ship touched down on a quiet platform near the Atlantic Arcology, one of Earth's largest administrative centers. Alara and Sarah left the ship together. Hale stayed aboard, keeping systems on standby in case they needed to leave quickly. The air smelled of salt and metal as they walked through the Arcology's polished corridors. Holographic signs floated above doorways, pointing toward archives, research labs, and security offices. The place hummed with quiet activity, but Alara sensed a layer of caution in the workers' eyes. They met Administrator Rowan, a gray-haired official with a calm voice. Captain Vance, welcome, Rowan said, shaking Alara's hand. Your message said you had urgent research findings? Alara gave a polite smile. Yes, we found something unusual on the outer colonies. I need access to early colonization records, the restricted kind. Rowan's brows lifted. That's classified. Lives are at stake, Alara said firmly. Settlements are going dark. We think it links back to Earth. Rowan studied her, then gestured down a long hallway. Follow me. They rode a lift deep beneath the arcology. The air grew cooler, the lights dimmer. At last, the doors opened to reveal a vast chamber lined with storage modules and old-style data terminals. It smelled faintly of dust despite the machine's steady hum. This is the Heritage Vault, Rowan explained. Everything about the first wave of colonization is stored here. Agreements, technical plans, even personal diaries. Sarah's eyes brightened. We need files about something called a recall or reclamation protocol. Rowan paused. Where did you hear that phrase? Windmere, Alara answered. We found a message. Rowan gave a slow sigh, then walked to a control desk. I'll unlock a section. But you didn't hear this from me. Screens flickered to life, showing rows of documents and logs. Alara and Sarah bent over the display as information scrolled past. They read for hours. Old meeting notes described how, in the early days of space travel, Earth's council worried about the colonies becoming too independent. There were debates about how to guide them without crushing their growth. Then Alara saw a report labeled Project Haven. She opened it. Project Haven, a long-term safeguard. Each colony to receive hidden infrastructure during construction. Purpose: maintain connection, ensure loyalty, prevent separation from Earth's guidance. A later entry bore a new name: Recall Protocol. The Recall Protocol will allow Earth to call back settlers or suspend outer stations if cultural drift threatens unity. Devices to be buried below primary settlements. Activation only by High Council order. Alara felt her chest tighten. They built this into every colony. Sarah's face was pale. But no one warned the settlers. Another document showed diagrams of small devices buried in soil and stone, exactly like the fragments Sarah had recovered. A note at the end caught Alara's attention. Do not reveal to local leaders. Knowledge may create resistance. Alara leaned back, rubbing her temples. So the colonies didn't fail. They were switched off. Rowan stood nearby, his hands clasped. Captain, I should tell you, this protocol hasn't been mentioned in over 70 years. Few even know it exists. Someone knows, Alara replied. And they're using it. Back aboard the Aurora's path, Alara met with her crew. Hale sat forward, listening closely as she shared what they had learned. They were afraid the colonies would grow apart from Earth, she said, so they planted a system to control them. Something that could silence or even retrieve them if Earth thought they were slipping away. Hale shook his head slowly. All those people, families, they trusted Earth, Sarah added, and the network is still live. We saw it working on Callisto Prime. Whoever controls it could erase every settlement if they choose. Ilara looked at them. We need to find out who holds the key now, and why they're triggering it. The next step lay in the High Council Archives, a heavily guarded center in Geneva Archaeology. Ilara decided to go in person, taking only Sarah to avoid drawing attention. The Geneva complex stood among snow-capped peaks, its towers gleaming in the sun. Security gates scanned every visitor. Ilara presented a sealed letter from Rowan, granting limited access. Inside, they found a hall lined with banners from humanity's first ships. A clerk guided them to a secure chamber where historical AI curators managed old files. The AI spoke in a calm, clear tone. Captain Vance, Dr. Malik, you seek records regarding the recall protocol. Yes, Ilara said. We need its last activation order. The AI's image flickered. One moment. Lines of text appeared on a holographic wall. The activation record showed a date, just 2 months ago. The request came from a committee under Earth's Department of Stability. The order bore a strange code signature not tied to any single person. Department of Stability, Sarah whispered. The AI continued. Access to the code source is restricted to Level 0 authority. That's the high chair, Ilara said. The highest office, Sarah frowned. But why would they hide their identity? Unless the order wasn't meant to be public. Ilara nodded grimly. We'll need proof before we confront them. That night, in a quiet guest wing of the Geneva Archaeology, Ilara stood by a window. Below, lights glittered on the lake. It should have been peaceful, but unease filled her chest. She thought about the settlers, miners on Ganymede, farmers on Windmere, engineers on Callisto Prime. They had built homes in hard places, hoping their children would live under new skies. And Earth had hidden a leash beneath their soil. Sarah joined her, carrying a tablet of fresh analysis. The signal's architecture is complex, she said. But I've mapped its spread. It begins at a hub under Earth's Atlantic crust. Ilara turned. Under the ocean? Yes, a facility called the Anchor Core. It's old, older than most of the archaeologies. If we want to stop the recall, that's where we go. Ilara smiled faintly. Good work. But inside, her thoughts raced. A hidden base beneath the sea holding a system powerful enough to quiet entire worlds. And no one had spoken of it for decades. Why? Before dawn, Ilara returned to the Aurora's path. She ordered Hale to prepare for a descent toward the Atlantic, keeping their mission off official logs. As the ship lifted, a misty sunrise painted the sky. From high above, Earth looked calm, its oceans silver in the light, but below, secrets waited in the deep. When they reached coordinates above the mid-Atlantic, the crew stared at the ocean. Sensors scanned the waters until they found an opening, a circular gate hidden beneath waves marked by faint lights. A hatch, Hale said, surprised. And it's answering our ping. Sarah checked her console. It knows the ship's registry. Someone programmed it long ago, Ilara breathed in. Take us in. The Aurora's path slipped below the surface, its hull strong against the pressure. The water darkened, lit only by the ship's lamps. Strange structures appeared. Towers of metal covered in coral forming a quiet city on the seafloor. In the center stood a dome with a glowing entrance. As they approached, a voice crackled over the comm. Identify purpose, Ilara replied steady. Captain Vance, independent survey. We seek information about the recall protocol. A pause followed. Then, permission granted. Docking bay opening. Steel doors parted, revealing a hidden harbor filled with soft lights. The ship glided inside. They stepped out into a wide hall carved from silver-gray alloy. Symbols of Earth's first fleet were etched on the walls. Screens displayed maps of colony routes and data streams pulsing with faint light. An older man awaited them. He wore a simple uniform with no rank marks. "Welcome," he said. "I am Keeper Alden. You stand in the anchor core." Alara looked around. The Aurora's path climbed high above Earth's oceans, sunlight gleaming across its silver hull. Inside, Captain Alara Vance stood at the center of the bridge, her hands folded behind her back. The anchor core's revelations still echoed in her mind. Hidden devices buried on every colony, a signal waking them after decades of silence, and an unknown hand using Earth's ancient safeguard to reclaim the stars. She gazed out at the wide curve of the planet below. Green lands stretched under white clouds, peaceful and bright. But she could not shake the thought that somewhere beneath those clouds, someone was turning humanity's future into a chain. Hale's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "Captain, we're clear of the atmosphere. All systems steady," Alara nodded. "Set a course for the Geneva Arcology. We need that master key before the network wipes out more colonies." Hale tapped the controls and the ship's engines hummed as they changed direction. Beside him, Dr. Sarah Malik reviewed data from the anchor core. Lines of code scrolled over her screen like tiny rivers. "These patterns," Sarah said, pointing to a section, "are building toward something larger. The recall isn't just calling people back, it's preparing a complete shutdown." Alara frowned. "A shutdown of what?" "Everything," Sarah replied quietly. "Power grids, comm towers, atmosphere processors. If the sequence finishes, whole settlements could lose support systems." The bridge went still. Hale turned toward them, concern etched on his face. "Then we don't have much time." They landed at Geneva Arcology as the sun dipped behind the snowy Alps. Tall glass towers reflected the orange sky, while quiet gardens stretched between walkways. From above, the city looked calm, but Alara sensed an undercurrent of unease, as if people felt a change they could not name. Rowan, the administrator who had helped them at the Atlantic Vault, met them at a discreet entrance. "The council's main building is sealed tight," Rowan said as they walked through narrow halls. "Only members and staff can enter freely." "We don't need the whole council," Alara replied. "Just the vault." Rowan's expression was uneasy. "The vault is inside the high chair's office wing. Guards watch every door. If anyone thinks you're trying to bypass security, they'll ground your ship." Alara stopped. "Then we need to be careful." "Can you get us close?" Rowan nodded slowly. "I can arrange a visitor badge, but after that, you're on your own." The next morning, Alara and Sarah entered the council tower under the pretense of delivering research notes on colony stability. They passed through tall glass halls where sunlight painted shifting patterns on the floor. Officials hurried between rooms, speaking softly. The vault lay deep beneath the tower. To reach it, they rode a lift past polished offices and meeting rooms. At the lowest level, steel doors guarded a narrow corridor lit by pale lamps. 2 sentries stood watch. Their uniforms were dark blue and a faint silver badge gleamed on each shoulder. They scanned Alara's pass, then looked at her sharply. "This is for archive access only," one said. "The vault is restricted," Alara smiled politely. "We're here on direct request from the Atlantic Administrator. We only need a quick look at an old file." The guards exchanged a glance. Finally, one pressed a button. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, a quiet chamber stretched ahead. At its far end stood a console embedded in the wall. Above it hung an old Earth flag, faded but proud. Alara stepped forward carefully. Sarah followed, her eyes bright with curiosity. The console's surface shimmered to life, showing a map of human colonies dotted with red and green lights. A message blinked at the top. "Access requires master key." Alara held out the device Alden had given them in the anchor core. She placed it in the slot, and soft light spread across the screen. "Authorization accepted," a calm voice announced. Lines of data filled the display. Dates, signals, energy flows. Alara scanned them quickly. "Here, this is the activation order." Sarah leaned closer. "It's encrypted, but look at the origin marker. At the bottom of the record, a single phrase glowed faintly. Source, Stability Department, Directive 77. Same as before," Alara said. "But this time I think we can trace it." Sarah's fingers moved over the controls. "There's a hidden layer," she murmured. "Give me a moment." Suddenly alarms rang. Red lights flashed along the walls. "What's happening?" Alara demanded. The system detected our query, Sarah replied. Someone knows we're here. Outside, heavy steps echoed as guards approached. Ilara pulled the device from the console. Time to leave. They slipped out into the hall just as the sentries rounded the corner. Captain Vance, one said sternly. You're not cleared for that chamber. Ilara forced a calm smile. We were told it was part of the archives. Come with us, the guard said. We need to confirm your clearance. Ilara and Sarah exchanged a quick glance. They could not risk losing the device or their ship. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Ilara said gently. Our mission is urgent. If you delay us, lives on the colonies may be lost. The guards hesitated. For a moment, silence filled the corridor. Finally, the taller one lowered his scanner. We'll log your visit as research, he said. But leave now. Ilara nodded in thanks, and they moved quickly back to the lift. Only when they were inside did Sarah let out a shaky breath. That was close, she said. Ilara looked at the device in her hand. But we got what we came for. Back aboard the Aurora's path, Sarah worked late in the lab, decoding the hidden layer from the vault's records. Ilara sat nearby, sipping a mug of dark tea while she watched lines of code transform into words. Finally, Sarah straightened. Here it is, she said, pointing at the screen. The recall isn't just a single signal. It's a living process. Every beacon connects to a central hub, a command node in orbit near Earth's moon. Ilara leaned closer. A command node? Not on the ground? No, Sarah said. It's a small station hidden in the lunar shadow. Whoever controls that node can send instructions across the entire network. Hale's voice came over the comm. Captain, you should see this. He sent an image to their screens, Callisto Prime viewed through a deep space telescope. Across its surface, tiny flickers of light pulsed in rhythm. Sarah studied the image. That's the recall wave. It's getting stronger. Ilara set her mug aside. Prepare for launch to the lunar shadow. If that node is running the signal, we have to see it. The ship left Earth's atmosphere under cover of night. Stars sparkled against the dark sky and the moon glowed pale ahead. As they approached, sensors picked up a faint object hidden just beyond the moon's curve. There, Hale said, pointing at the display, a small platform. No official registry. Ilara ordered a slow approach. The station was a modest ring of metal with panels folded like wings. A soft blue light pulsed from its center, casting a glow across the lunar surface. Looks quiet, Hale murmured. Too quiet, Ilara replied. Bring us closer, but keep shields ready. They docked with a gentle click. Ilara, Sarah, and Hale suited up and stepped through the airlock into the station's entryway. Dust floated in weak gravity, drifting like silver snow. Inside, the corridors were narrow and dim. Machines lined the walls, their screens glowing faintly. A single console in the central chamber pulsed with blue light. Sarah approached carefully. This is it, she whispered. The command node. The screen displayed streams of data flowing outward, carrying instructions to beacons across human space. Ilara watched the words shift. Phase 2 initiating. What's Phase 2? Hale asked. Sarah scanned the lines. It's preparing to disable environmental support on affected colonies. If it completes, thousands of people could be trapped. Ilara felt her pulse quicken. Can we stop it? Not yet, Sarah said. The system is protected by layered codes. Whoever built this made sure no one could tamper easily. Ilara looked at the star maps glowing on the console. More red marks spread across them, settlements fading like candles. The recall was no longer quiet. It was accelerating. They returned to the ship and gathered in the briefing room. Everyone wore serious expressions. We have proof now, Ilara said, placing the device on the table. The recall is run from that station. But someone gave it orders from Earth. If we can find them, we can shut the process down. Hale crossed his arms. We'll have to go public. People need to know. Not yet, Ilara said firmly. If we speak too soon, whoever is behind this will hide deeper or strike harder. We need one more lead. Sarah looked at her notes. The activation logs mention a control phrase, Unity Override. It might be the final command to stop or continue the recall. Ilara nodded. Then that's our next goal. Later, Ilara stood alone in the observation deck. The moon hung nearby, calm and bright, while Earth shone blue in the distance. She thought of the settlers, children playing under alien skies, scientists building observatories on new worlds, farmers planting crops in fresh soil. They had trusted that space was theirs to explore. Now an old system threatened to take that freedom away. Ilara tightened her hands against the rail. She remembered Alden's words in the anchor core. "Not everyone will want you to succeed," she whispered to herself. Steady and clear, "I won't let them take the stars from us." That night, while the crew rested, Ilara studied the node's schematics. She marked weak points where a careful change might break the signal without harming the colonies. Her thoughts were interrupted by an alert. Hale's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, there's movement!" Ilara hurried to the bridge. On the sensors, a small craft approached from Earth's side. The Aurora's path floated in the quiet shadow behind the moon. Beyond its windows, Earth glowed like a lantern, blue and white against the dark. Captain Ilara Vance stood on the bridge watching the peaceful view. It felt strange to see calm beauty while knowing a storm of secrets threatened every human world. The crew gathered near her. Sarah Malik with her tablet full of signal data, Hale steady at the controls, and 3 engineers waiting for orders. They had learned that the recall network came from an old station hidden in lunar darkness, guided by a master key on Earth. They had also learned of a special phrase, Unity Override, that might stop the process. Ilara turned from the window. "We can't stay hidden forever," she said. "The recall is growing faster. Colonies will lose support systems if we wait too long." Hale leaned forward. "Then we need to act. Either we get that phrase or we disable the node." Sarah shook her head. "We must be careful. If we damage the node without the right command, we might harm the colonies." Ilara paced slowly, thinking. The station was small but protected. A patrol ship had already scanned it. That meant someone on Earth was watching. "Maybe we don't need to attack," she said at last. "Maybe we need to make people on Earth see what's happening." Later that day, Ilara recorded a message. She stood in the ship's quiet briefing room, light soft against the metal walls. Her voice was calm but firm as she spoke. "To the Council of Earth and every settlement across our space. I am Captain Ilara Vance of the Aurora's Path. We have discovered that the old recall protocol is active. Colonies are losing their systems because of a hidden network built long ago. This signal is not protecting us. It is putting lives at risk. We ask for transparency and a stop to the recall before more people are harmed." She sent the message through encrypted channels to trusted contacts on Mars, Luna City, and several free stations. If enough leaders saw it, they might question the Stability Department's orders. When the message was away, she sat back, feeling a quiet strength. The truth was out now, at least in part. The reply came sooner than expected. A soft chime sounded on the bridge, and Hale opened the channel. A woman's face appeared on the screen, sharp features, silver hair tied neatly. "I am High Chair Danelle Orlin," she said. "Captain Vance, you have stirred great concern." Ilara stood tall. "Madam Chair, the recall is hurting people. You must order it stopped." Orlin's eyes narrowed. "The recall protects unity. Colonies far from Earth sometimes drift. They build their own laws, their own cultures. We cannot risk division." Sarah stepped into view. "That may have been true once," she said gently, "but now it's causing harm. Families are vanishing from their homes. Systems are failing." Orlin hesitated, then sighed. "I didn't approve this activation. Someone used my office to sign the order." Ilara felt a spark of hope. "Then help us find who did." "I'll review my logs," Orlin promised. "But be cautious. Whoever triggered the sequence may have friends in high places." After the call, the ship grew quiet. Ilara stood with Sarah near the observation deck. Stars shone beyond the glass like tiny fires. She seemed honest. Sarah said softly. "Yes," Ilara agreed. "But honesty isn't enough. We need the override." Hale joined them, holding a data slate. "I've been mapping the station's defenses," he said. "We can slip inside if we create a short power loop. It won't damage anything, but it'll blind their sensors for a few minutes." Ilara thought carefully. "That could give us access to its deeper files." Sarah nodded. "If we get to the core terminal, we might find the Unity override before the signal reaches the outer rim." They moved fast. While Earth rotated slowly below, the crew prepared for a covert entry. Tools were packed, suits checked, codes ready. Ilara felt the familiar tension of dangerous missions, but this one held more than risk. It held the weight of thousands of lives. That night, they left the Aurora's path in a small shuttle. The craft glided silently toward the station. Its silver panels caught faint light from the stars. Inside, Alara sat in the pilot seat, Sarah beside her, Hale behind. "Time to shadow," Hale said, activating the loop. The station's lights flickered as their device sent harmless echoes through its sensors. They entered through a maintenance hatch. The corridors inside were dim, full of soft humming from hidden machines. A faint blue glow spilled from the command room at the center. Sarah led the way to the main console. She connected her tablet, scanning the system's files. "I'm in," she whispered. Searching for Unity override, Alara watched the door. The station was silent, but she knew silence could break without warning. Minutes passed before Sarah gasped softly. "Found it, but it's locked behind an ethical code." "Elaborate," Alara said. "It asks for a choice," Sarah explained. "If we use the override, we must decide. Keep colonies tied to Earth forever or give them complete independence. The system won't allow a middle answer." Hale frowned. "So either chains or chaos." Alara read the words on the screen. Unity override. Choose outcome. A. Centralize all colonies under Earth governance. Visor, release all colonies from Earth authority. She felt the weight of history pressing down. Someone long ago had built this safeguard, believing humanity might face a day of doubt. Now the choice had arrived. They left the station quietly, returning to their ship with the data. On the bridge, they debated the meaning. "Option A is safe," Hale said. "Earth would keep order." "Safe for whom?" Sarah asked gently. "What about those who built their lives on freedom?" Alara listened. She remembered miners on Ganymede, farmers on Windmere, scientists on Callisto Prime. They had shaped their homes with courage. She also thought of Earth, the cradle of humankind, a place that feared losing its children. "Maybe unity isn't chains or chaos," she said slowly. "Maybe it's trust." Hale tilted his head. "But the system doesn't offer that." "Then we must change it," Alara replied. Before they could plan further, another alert sounded. A new signal pulsed from the station, racing through the network. Sarah checked her screen. "Phase 3 has begun. It's moving to shut down life support on the outer rim." "How long?" Alara asked. "Hours," Sarah answered. "Maybe less." Alara looked at her crew. They were tired but determined. "We don't have time for politics," she said. "We'll write a third path ourselves." Hale grinned faintly. "Custom code." "I like it." Sarah got to work, her fingers flying over controls. "If we upload a new directive, we can tell the network to pause while waiting for consent from each colony." Alara smiled. "That's the choice humanity needs, not control or abandonment, but a voice." The plan was bold. They would send a new instruction through the command node, rewriting the protocol so every settlement could decide its own connection to Earth. But to upload it, they had to return to the station's core. As they approached again, a small drone appeared from behind a panel, its sensors scanning. Hale steered the shuttle aside. "They've activated security." Alara stayed calm. "Keep moving slowly. No sudden motions." The drone floated near, then drifted away. They slipped through the hatch and hurried to the control chamber. Sarah connected her tablet once more. Code lines spilled across the console. "Almost there," she murmured. Suddenly the station's speakers crackled. A cold voice echoed through the room. "Unauthorized access detected. Leave at once." Ilara's eyes narrowed. "We don't leave." Time felt heavy as Sarah worked. Hale watched the door, ready to shield his friends if needed. Alara stood at Sarah's side, steady as a stone. Finally, Sarah pressed a final key. "Upload ready," she said. Alara nodded. "Do it." A soft light spread across the station as the new directive traveled through its circuits. The words on the screen shifted. "Update accepted. Awaiting colony responses." The recall signal slowed, its steady pulse breaking into calm waves. Sarah exhaled in relief. "It's holding." Alara allowed herself a small smile. They had not solved everything, but they had given the colonies a voice. Back on the ship, the crew gathered around a large screen showing human space. Green markers flickered back to life where red once glowed. Messages arrived from Mars, Titan, Windmere, and more. "We hear you. System stable. Thank you." One transmission stood out, a calm voice from a distant station near Alpha Gate. "We choose partnership, not control. Let us stay linked as equals." Alara felt warmth in her chest. "That's what this is about," she said quietly. "Not just survival, belonging," Hale smiled. "So we found a middle path after all." As Earth's dawn spilled across the ship's windows, Alara stood in thought. She knew the battle was not over. Whoever had started the recall still moved unseen. They might try again, but for now, thousands of people could breathe easier. Colonies were alive. The network no longer claimed them without their will. Alara looked at her crew, proud and grateful. They had faced codes, secrets, and choices bigger than any single life. And they had chosen hope. The stars stretched ahead, wide and clear. Humanity's story would continue, not by command or fear, but by shared decision. And Captain Alara Vance felt certain that, whatever trials came next, the people of Earth and the colonies could face them together. The first pale light of Earth's morning spread across the Aurora's path as it drifted high above the Pacific. Clouds looked like brushed silver against the sea. Captain Alara Vance stood on the bridge, her hands resting lightly on the rail. For the first time in weeks, there was no urgent signal, no echo of systems falling apart across the stars, only quiet. Behind her, Sarah Malik scrolled through long columns of data. Green lights glowed across the display, showing colonies coming back online. Life support systems hummed, farms restarted. Navigation buoys flickered alive in far orbits. All outer rim stations report stable, Sarah said, her voice calm but bright with relief. Even Winmere's weather domes are steady again. Hale leaned back in his chair with a grin. I never thought I'd see that many green markers at once. Alara allowed herself a small smile. We gave them a choice, she said, and they chose to stay. News of the Aurora's path spread fast. Messages poured in through every secure channel. On Mars, governors thanked the crew for saving their farms. From Titan came images of children drawing stars with bright chalk, their homes safe again. Even the scattered research outposts near the edge of the Kuiper Belt sent short, cheerful notes. Systems steady. Crew sends gratitude. One voice carried more weight than the rest. High Chair. Danelle Orlin appeared on the main screen, her silver hair reflecting the morning light in her office. Captain Vance, she said, on behalf of Earth's Council, I thank you and your team. Your actions have preserved thousands of lives and reminded us what leadership means. Alara bowed her head slightly. Thank you, Madam Chair, but we still don't know who started the recall. Orlin nodded. Our investigation continues. Records point to an old stability division thought inactive. Someone inside reactivated their code. We believe they wanted to draw the colonies back under strict control. Hale frowned. So the danger isn't gone? No, Orlin admitted. But your work showed the folly of such control. The Council is preparing new laws to protect the freedom of every world. The crew felt a cautious pride, but none of them believed their task was finished. In the ship's quiet dining bay, they shared tea and simple food, talking in low voices. We saved the colonies, Hale said. But whoever started this might try again. Sarah looked thoughtful. Maybe we don't wait for them. Maybe we build something stronger. A council where Earth and the colonies speak as equals. Alara nodded slowly. A council of stars, she said. Not just orders from Earth, but shared voices. They all liked the idea. For years, humans across space had worked alone. Each colony focused on survival. Now, after the recall scare, they had reason to talk together. Later that day, they received an invitation from Earth's Council to attend an open session in the Grand Chamber above the Atlantic Arcology. Shuttles carried leaders from Mars, Luna, Ceres, and even a few from the Rim. For the first time, voices from every settlement were gathered under one roof. Alara, Sarah, and Hale landed near the shining dome and stepped into its wide halls. Sunlight fell through glass walls, catching on banners that displayed the emblem of the whole species. A single spiral, half blue, half gold. Inside the chamber, rows of seats curved toward a high platform. People spoke quietly, their faces full of expectation. When the meeting began, Orlan stood at the front. Friends, she said, her voice steady. We have lived through a dangerous mistake. An old program nearly broke the bonds between Earth and its children. Yet from this near disaster, we learned something precious. Our strength comes from respect, not command. She gestured toward Alara. Captain Vance and her crew gave us proof. They could have chosen power or isolation, but instead they gave every world a voice. Applause echoed across the dome. Alara felt warmth rise in her cheeks, but stayed composed. Orlan continued. Today I propose a new framework, the Stellar Assembly. A gathering where Earth and every colony can decide shared matters together, while keeping freedom in local hands. The vote was not easy. Some representatives feared chaos. Others demanded guarantees of safety. Debate stretched for hours, but slowly agreement grew. By evening, the assembly was approved. That night, back aboard the Aurora's path, the crew watched lights bloom across Earth's cities below. They were tired, yet full of quiet joy. "We made history," Sarah said softly. Alara looked out at the dark horizon. "History is only beginning," she replied. "We must help guide it." Hale tapped a new message blinking on his console. "First invitations from Colonies," he announced. "Windmere, Titan, and Mars want to hold a joint session about science trade. They're already acting like assembly members." Alara laughed, the sound easing the last of her tension. "Good. That means our work mattered." Days turned into weeks as the new network grew. The assembly set up secure channels linking Earth to outposts through relay satellites. Each colony chose its own delegates, from miners to farmers, engineers to artists. Even small science stations far beyond Pluto sent recorded greetings. But the crew also stayed alert. Hidden corners of the recall system still held encrypted lines. Someone had left shadows inside the code. Sarah spent long nights at the navigation console, tracing faint digital trails. One evening she called Alara to the bridge. "I've found something," she said. On the screen appeared a cluster of signals moving slowly toward a deep space relay. "It's a leftover command still trying to wake old beacons." Alara studied the map. The signals pointed toward an abandoned platform near the asteroid Cora 7. That may be the place where the Stability Division stored their backups. Hale checked the charts. 2 days' travel if we push the drives. Alara looked at her friends. "Let's finish this." The trip through the inner belt was quiet but tense. The Aurora's path glided among drifting rocks and silent dust. When they reached Cora 7, they found a small station hidden inside a hollow asteroid. Its lights were faint, but sensors showed power still alive. They docked carefully and entered. Inside, the walls were lined with dusty consoles. At the center stood a narrow pillar covered in old touch panels. Words appeared in faded letters. Stability Core. Level Omega. Sarah linked her tablet, searching for active code. "This is the last piece," she whispered. "If we shut it down, no one can restart the recall." But the pillar displayed a warning. Deactivation may remove protective memory for future guidance. Alara read the line twice. "Protective memory?" she asked. Sarah nodded. "Looks like the designers stored lessons here. Histories of how Earth and Colonies once argued and grew apart. If we wipe everything, we might lose that record." Hale rubbed his chin. "Maybe we don't erase. Maybe we seal it and leave a message for whoever finds it next." Alara smiled faintly. "A time capsule." They wrote a note inside the archive. "We, crew of the Aurora's path, end the forced recall. We leave these memories so future generations remember why unity must be built with respect." Sarah locked the system with a new key known only to the assembly. The old signal faded like mist. When they returned to Earth, a ceremony awaited them. Leaders of the assembly gathered on the Atlantic coast, near tall cliffs that caught the golden sunset. A clear platform overlooked the sea. Delegates from distant worlds stood side by side with Earth citizens. Orlan addressed the gathering. "Today we honor those who saved our kin across the stars. Their courage showed that leadership is not command, but service." She invited Alara forward. The captain stepped up, feeling the wind lift her hair. Orlan handed her a simple medallion engraved with a spiral star. "For preserving our shared future," Orlan said. Alara accepted with quiet grace. She turned to face the crowd, her eyes catching the wide horizon. "We stand here not as rulers and subjects, not as home and frontier," she said, her voice clear. "We stand as one people choosing our path together. May we never forget that trust built this moment." Applause rose warm and strong. Children ran along the cliffs, laughing in the sunlight. That evening, the crew walked along the beach below the cliffs. Waves rolled in slow and steady. Above them, the first stars appeared, shining through the fading glow. Sarah skipped a stone across the water. "Think the assembly will last?" she asked. Hale watched the horizon. "If they listen to each other, yes." Alara stood quietly, gazing at the stars. She thought of all the worlds they had touched, the icy moons, the green valleys, the drifting stations. Each held people with hopes and stories. All of them had nearly been lost to a signal born of fear. Now they had a chance to grow, not under control but with shared purpose. She turned to her friends, smiling softly. The stars remember where they came from, she said. And now Earth remembers the stars. Together they looked upward, where constellations stretched across the sky like bright paths waiting to be walked. For the first time since the crisis began, Alara felt peace. Not because danger was gone and there would always be challenges, but because humanity had learned a better way. Respect, choice, and hope. The wind carried a scent of salt and new beginnings. Above, the heavens glimmered with quiet promise, ready for the next chapter of the story that all of them, on Earth and far beyond, would write together.